Mr. X with the Extreme Channel here. You are watching from a little bit farther away than normal. You know why? Because I needed to get this entire advanced Mogwai into the shot. He's a little big, that's what she said. And also, I'm really excited, a lot more excited than normal. So you need to stay a little bit farther away. But with that being said, I'm so excited because this is a rail for me. Remember, I coined and copyrighted the term rail. Rail is a mix. It's not quite a grail, but it's something I really want. So this is a rail for me, and I think you guys better strap in because as I review this piece, it's going to be a long one. That's what she said.
Don't ever feed him after midnight.
Mr. X with the Extreme Channel. We have Elite Creature Collectibles Mohawk Gremlin right here. So first of all, what is a gremlin? Well, I'm not an expert, so I decided to bring in an expert. I'm bringing in Mr. Futterman. Mr. Futterman, if you don't know who he is, he deals with all types of weird creatures. First of all, he sold the Terminator some guns back in the 80s. And then, actually, I think it was prior to that, he actually sold some silver bullets to a guy to kill some werewolves in The Howling. But just to fill you in on what exactly is a gremlin, here's Mr. Futterman.
You gotta watch out for the foreigners because they plant gremlins in their machinery. That's the same gremlins brought down our plane. Put them in the cars, they put them in the TV, they put them in the stereos and the radios you stick in your ears. They put them in your watches. They got little teeny gremlins for our watches.
So gremlins come from the 20th century. They created a movie back in 1984, which was a horror/comedy, and it had huge success. It's still beloved today, and it's beloved for a lot of reasons. First, number one, it had Phoebe Cates in it, who, in my opinion, is one of the most attractive women in the world. However, it was just a star-studded cast and who's an oddball films, and it was such a cool concept. So you had these little creatures called Mogwais, which you can see the ass of a Mogwai sticking out of here. And if they eat after midnight, and no one's clear on what time that is it midnight to 6 a.m.? Because technically it's always after midnight. They turn into these awesome creatures. And this was made by Elite Creature Collectibles. It's a company that makes full-size busts, 1/3 scale maquettes. This is a full-size gremlin. They do a lot of movie-related licensed pieces. They made 299 of these, and they retail for right around $2,500. So do the math on that. Yeah, that's $750,000. So this is actually not from the movie Gremlins. It's from the sequel, Gremlins 2, which was made in 1990. And it's not technically the exact pose from a scene, but it is taken from a scene. Check this out right here. This guy, who's kind of the leader of the evil gremlins, actually is making photocopies, Xerox copies of Gizmo, the main hero in the story, if you want to call him a hero. But he's the one that all the gremlins came from. As you see, gremlins don't have any sexual reproductive organs. When they get wet, they multiply. If you don't know what a gremlin is, I really don't know why you're watching this, but that's just some info for you. So I purchased this guy because I have an old stripe gremlin piece, and I think it was made by NECA or somebody, I can't remember, but it's more of a rubber piece that you have to pose, and it doesn't work really well. And I've always wanted the Gizmo that Elite Creature Collectibles makes. Here's a picture of that. And as you see, this is also from Gremlins 2, but I've never pulled the trigger because he's so expensive and he's so small. So this piece is going to go with all my horror and villain busts in my theater room. I'm not sure how I'm going to display them, so right now I've just thrown them in here like this picture. I'm still working on that room, got a lot to do in it. But really, really excited. I paid $200 or $300 shipping. I don't even remember how much. And he came in a number of pieces in a huge box. So first of all, here's a look at the box. My cell phone's on top to kind of give you a reference for size. Inside, you had 2 layers of foam. There's also an art box that I never looked at. Here's the first layer, and we're going to talk about all the pieces and how it was put together. And here is the second layer. And in usual style, it came with a few things. Number one, it came with a COA, Certificate of Authentication. or authenticity. Mine was bent, unfortunately, so that is what it is. I'm filming this during Sideshow's Spooktacular, and I just got a code, so hold on. All right, done. So certificate of authenticity. And again, this is number 24 of 299 if you cared. It also came with directions, which I initially did not look at, but then I found myself wondering where the black tray that we're going to talk about goes. And I found out the directions are just, if it doesn't fit, use a hairdryer. So once again, to my point that directions are for pussies and they're really not needed. Came in a number of pieces, as you saw. The first piece is the copier itself, and this is the majority of the weight of the statue. This copier weighs a shitload. Don't even know how much. Came with the photos of Gizmo, and here is a close-up of each photo. So you have one where he's fully pressed, almost kissing the glass. Another one where he has one hand kind of in front of his face. And then the other one with two hands. This black tray is a separate piece. Gizmo himself is another piece, and kind of a spoiler, it's only half of Gizmo. You don't have his head. But because Gizmo's actually in here, reason I kind of justified in my head not buying the other full Gizmo piece for $2,000. His body is one piece minus his arms. Each arm comes in with a very long peg. And then his mohawk on the back is connected via magnet. And there are two pieces to that. So fairly easy to put together. His weight is really the only biggest thing. Let's do measurements for you guys really quick. So I think the widest part is the copier, which is just under 20 inches. The depth, probably from the back to his front fingernails, about 14 inches, this fingernail right here. And then his height, how tall he is right at 29 inches. So if you are going to put him in a cabinet or a shelf, it's got to be pretty big. That's what she said. Let's jump into the design and concept of this piece. There's a few things going on. The concept, like I said, is pretty obvious. It's from the actual movie, and we're going to talk about that. And the design, there's a few issues that I unfortunately found that for a $2,500 piece kind of upset me. So first, conceptually, he is sitting on a Xerox copier. And one thing I really like, I talked about this when I unboxed it live, is it looks like one from the 1980s or 1990s. That puke, off-white, piss yellow type color. I like that they stayed in the time era. It has a clamp symbol on the front, which is the office building they were in. And he's standing on top. You see Gizmo being crushed. The gremlins like to toy with Gizmo. Some of the other things, here's some clips right here that he did besides messing with Gizmo is, or besides copying Gizmo, was, you know, making him get run over by a train, electrocuting him. And gremlins are very mischievous, and they really captured that. They not only captured how mischievous he is, but how evil and almost disgusting and creepy he is. And I love the pose. I think they knocked that out of the park. The expression on the face is very good as well. Really, really fantastic job with the concept here, and it's one of the reasons that I pulled the trigger on this. It incorporates Gizmo, it incorporates the main gremlin from Gremlins 2, who ironically in Gremlins 2, he actually turns into a spider gremlin. Check this out. They tried to kind of push the boundaries, and they did all sorts of weird experiments on gremlins in Gremlins 2. So concept, I like it a lot. I'm a big fan, you know, throwing in the extra copies of Gizmo coming out the front. Another thing about the concept, which I think was a great idea but a horrible failure, is it actually has a power light up feature. So I'm going to let you guys judge it. Here's a quick video of that. So again, I like the idea of that, but it didn't sound like Gizmo. It wasn't needed. I was really excited to find out that it had that, and then kind of useless. Design-wise, as I said, there were two main issues that really concerned me. First is his left foot, which is the one that keys in, fit perfect and it went in like a charm. However, it leaves the right foot not even touching the ground. And granted, he might be stepping forward, but I definitely think this is a design miss, and it could be something with the temperature fluctuations. It was there was a 70-degree temperature swing where I live in the last 24 hours. So that's one thing, I can live with that. But the other thing, and I guess I have to live with it, the arm seams are nasty. Take a look at this. So here's the back of one side, and then we're looking at the front. And granted, they may have done the engineering cuts this way because shipping, and they didn't want anything damaged. But on a $2,500 piece, it does sit with me wrong. And there's a few other things that sit with me wrong in the paint and sculpt. And don't get me wrong, it's phenomenal. ECC, Elite Creature Collectibles, puts out fabulous pieces. I have their lichen piece. Here's a picture of that. I have their Reaper, and I absolutely love what they do. They are one of the best in the game. But let's jump into that paint and sculpt of this piece. And when we talk about it, we're going to talk about the base here. It's weird because there's not really sculpt to this, but we'll look at it anyway and look at some close-ups. So starting at the front here, you see the buttons and dials. I don't like the screen on the copier. I think they could have done something different with that. It just looks stupid. It looks fake. It looks plastic. The buttons look fine. Very aged for the 1980s. And again, look at the color they put on the copier, and the silver paint running around the sides looks like it's not a very clean paint job. And again, it's a copier, so I don't know if it was supposed to be. Check out the clamp symbol. Looks really good. Very movie accurate. And again, looking at the sides, the paint job on the silver I'm not a big fan of, but I do like that paint job on the rest of it. Not a lot to see here. On the back, you see where the AC adapter plugs in, and there's a power button for the light up feature we looked at. Let's take a look at Gizmo here. I'm not sure what the bottom of Gizmo's feet look like, so I can't really judge this. It looks very light to me. I think it would be darker, but who knows? There's a nice texture to his skin, and then that is real fur that you see, so very realistic. And then the top of the copier here, again, kind of same design, same colors, not a lot going on. Let's start on the Gremlin here, the Mohawk Gremlin. He looks fantastic. So starting at his feet, look at these colors, very reptilian, very dry yet slimy type skin, kind of an oxymoron, but it looks great. I love the variations. I love the green. You can see some veins in there. You see the speckles of black on the bottoms of his feet. It's very movie accurate. Check out his toes and these long nails. Fantastic job, both on the paint and sculpt. I really dig this, and there's not really a lot of QC issues with the paint or the sculpt. There's some things I talked about that I would like to change, but moving up almost looks like this hardened reptilian skin, and you start to see more spikes coming out of him, these black dots and black scales, but like on the inside of his thighs, kind of that same texture that's on the bottom of his feet. It's a lighter color, reminds me of a snake. But then that outer texture, like going up his sides, all these black polka dots. Very calculated. And again, I've never looked at a gremlin really close. Then check out his torso, his underbelly, or where his crotch is. And again, no sex organs. So a totally different color here. And I'm going to have to watch the movie to see how accurate this is. And it's neat. It looks like there's some kind of slime on it, but there's not much texture to it. So kind of this different color, and you see some folds in his skin where he's bending over. Very interesting. Not my favorite part on the front here. The back is totally different though. Check this out. So it reminds me of almost a stinger on the bottom, like a bumblebee or a stinging insect has, not only because of the yellow color, but just the shape of it. And then moving up, has all these scales on the back, and the 3 different colors, the black, and it's hard to tell even what color that is in the middle, but there's streaks of yellow inside of that, and then the yellow on the outside with the black. Looks really cool, really makes the statue pop. What I don't like is the back is a lot more entertaining than the front, and you're not going to see the back traditionally because you don't display him by the back. But as you move up on his back, you see his shoulder blades, all these spikes coming out of it, and these look like toenails or bones, very similar to the toenails on his feet, and there's this glistening effect right around them, and I almost wish there was more of a glistening effect. It's too dry in my opinion, both this right by the nails, then around it. And then let's look at his mohawk now. His mohawk is very light, so I don't know if it's plastic or PVC, but it looks really good. I like the red paint job, that dark reddish maroonish type color, then streaking into the black. I'm glad none of these were broken. It was packed really well. Very cool aspect to it. And then looking at his arms, you see a lot of everything we've seen here. You see some of those bones or whatever they are coming out of these scales. You see that dark green and black spots on the front of the arms. You see that kind of a different color, and it's a different color than his chest. You see very similar, almost aquatic-like fins coming out of the undersides of his arms, and there were some of these on the back of his legs we didn't really look or talk about too much. But then look at his hands, perfect gremlin hands. They're about as big as mine. They are actually as big as mine. So very oversized, but they are in the movie, and fantastic job on the nails, very menacing. And the, again, scales all over, looks really, really cool. And then let's move up to his neck here. Kind of has this gizzard type effect you think of when you look at a lizard, and it's almost a mix of a bearded dragon, and you see some of those red fins on the bottom of his chin here. And then I want to look at his ears before we go to his portrait, which is kind of the star of the show. So his ears on the front, they look okay. Again, the paint job looks basic, kind of flat on it. Not really impressed by his ears on the front here, and then even on the back, same exact thing. In the movie, I remember them being more scaly, but maybe I'm wrong. And then take a look at his head here. Starting at the back, has kind of this green pulsating thing. Reminds me of the creature that ate the vegetable formula. If you remember that, he grew vegetables all over his face. But very scaly, this green color. And then you move to the top of his head, it's this green and yellow color underneath his spike mohawk. Super cool. Again, really scaly, things jutting out. And then let's look at the portrait here. Overall, when you're looking at the portrait as a whole, it is amazing. It's the star of the show. It's really, really good. Very scary, very movie accurate. Like, Halloween is tomorrow, I think. It'd be cool to put this outside, but it's going to be 10 degrees to scare people away, and I don't want anything to happen to this. But moving on to the details of his face. So he has these bones or nails protruding from the sides. Again, that makes it look very scary. And the skin's not as moist around here as it was on the back. And then moving in, it's a mix of the dark greens, light greens, blacks. You see that yellow almost slits around his eyes, or protrusions. And then near his eyes, he has kind of this brownish, gooish, nasty looking crap. And then look at his eyes. So one really cool thing about his eyes, it reminds me of the eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings, actually, with all these veins and fires coming from the outside. I wonder if that was part of the inspiration. Fantastic sculpt on his nose, very scaly right around it. And then I think where the biggest opportunity was missed was in his mouth. So his teeth are not very menacing, and again, they may be movie accurate, I'm not sure, but his teeth, I think they're too clean. There's not enough of them. They're small. I think that's a big miss. And then equally a big miss, I think, is the tongue. I don't like the fact there's no texture on it. It's kind of wavy, and it's like a forked tongue in the end, but I don't like the colors on it. I don't like how small it is. They really could have done some clear resin glistening effect, saliva-like. So I think on the inside of the mouth, I've seen some other creatures just a much better job on the inside of the mouth. So those are my thoughts on this guy. Let me know what you think. Is this piece a rail? For a horror collector, I absolutely say yes. For an everyday collector, $2,500 with some issues. The cool thing is it's an edition size. I think I said this in the beginning, of 299, so it's very rare, especially when you think worldwide. This is not necessarily something just for home displays, but think of if you owned a comic shop or a themed restaurant, something like that. This is something you would see inside Planet Hollywood restaurant. So I really appreciate you guys watching. If this is your first time on this channel, first, thank you for watching. I do mean that. Second of all, I have stuff like this all the time. I own tons of it, and I have new stuff coming in constantly. So if you want to see some more stuff like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell, and most importantly, drop me a comment on what you think of the piece, and give me a like. It helps the visibility so other people can make their opinions about this badass. But thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.